Think Tankers, it's Brian here, one half of the Think Tank, and welcome back for another episode of the 52 Ways to Put Your Policy to Work, hashtag 52 Ways Project. This one's going to just add to our list. Because today, what I wanted to teach you, and this is for current clients and then friends and family and stuff, what I wanted to teach you is how your whole life policy will increase your retirement income. Listen to that again. Why are we saving for retirement? Your whole life policy will increase your retirement income. And I want to make a bold statement here. You're going to see the numbers associated with it. It can increase it by 50% or more. And I'm going to teach you why. Because ultimately, and for me and for current clients, when we made a decision to open up a policy, some of us were determined to get our money out of the stock market, which is, a whole life policy is a good place to catch it, hold it, and then, as you've seen in the 52-week project, leverage it into other assets. Some of us still have that concern, like, well, isn't my 401k valuable to me? And that's what everyone else is doing, and I'm told that's what I'm supposed to do for retirement. So it can actually create a little bit of a choice or a struggle with why we're moving money into a whole life policy and why we're using that asset. Well, I want to address that right off the get-go, because at first, and then we can hear this from other people. I remember hearing it from other people back when I started my first policy, and I didn't fully wrap my head around all this. We can hear from other people, why would you put your money there and not in your 401k? I mean, look at what the 401k has done over the last 7 years. Why do you want a measly, 4 or 5% return? Well, if we only look at it from that perspective, we can be concerned that we're diminishing our future retirement by moving money towards a whole life policy, when in fact, above and beyond all the other attributes of using it along the way, it is actually going to create an environment where it will increase and allow us to make decisions to increase our retirement income. Let me give you a little bit of a history lesson. Back prior to the 70s and 80s, here's a timeline down here. Back prior to the 70s and 80s, whole life insurance was it has always been a terrific place to save cash, but it was one of the primary places where folks saved cash. And from a retirement perspective, whole life insurance and pensions, which are both insurance products, were effectively the things that worked back here. And for my older clients, or for the kids of my older clients who have heard my older clients talk about this, or for folks that just understand, pensions are going the way of the dodo bird. Pensions are an insurance product, and they're going the way of the dodo bird. And basically that's happening because right around the late 70s, early 1980s, Wall Street hijacked retirement. And what do I mean by that? I mean they promoted via the 401k platform, which hopefully you've seen some of the stuff we've posted about that. Even the founder himself says it was never meant to be the primary place and the primary tool for folks' retirement. But Wall Street hijacked it because they saw it as a way to proliferate cash flows towards them into their mutual funds in a tax-deferred manner, and they promoted the crap out of it. And then as more cash flow went towards that, since money's flowing towards it, that affects the price and drives it up. Keep that in mind, because when money flows out, that affects the price and drives it down. Wall Street basically hijacked retirement. And when we look forward into what happened in 2001, 2008, and today, folks are struggling with how to create retirement income because they don't have the insurance type, pension type products. They struggle without insurance and actuarial science insurance-based tools. Okay, and that's there's an arrow over here because that's going to continue unless folks recognize the value of these tools. And I have you're going to see me highlight statistics and evidence of this on top of our numbers. So considering that everyone's eyes were diverted, we're seeing the outcomes of that, we're seeing the uncertainty. We're going to talk a little bit about creating income in that world. The whole life products and the insurance products, especially the whole life one, as you're well aware of, if you're early on that timeline, you're probably well aware of the fact that it's a terrific place to not only have savings and cycle that into other investments, but it does in fact allow for growth that compounds over time. what we're going to talk about today, well, actually, I'll pause on that. Because it has a lot of the whole life insurance has a death benefit. Other type of annuity products and insurance products do have legacy benefits, but most importantly, the whole life insurance does have a legacy benefit. That plays a role in overall planning, and what you might want to dictate gets down to the kids, especially in a tax preferred manner. But what we're going to focus on today is how whole life insurance actually helps us increase our available income and possibly even guaranteed income in retirement. Okay, so let's start with this. The curves. I'm going to bring up this thing called the curves. Let me bring this over, and I sure do hope yep, it's ready to go. So this is important, whether you are in retirement, approaching retirement, or 20, 30 years away from retirement. When we use or when we follow the investment-only model, which is the 401k, pure 401k model, we're told that in the future we can only pull out 4% of our money in any given year. So if we have $1 million, and you're going to see this number later, $1 million, $1 million times 0.4%. You're told that if you want to make sure that you don't run out of money, you can only pull out 4% of your money in any given year. So in essence, your goal is to build this big nest egg and then only spend a measly little portion of it. These curves, which I'm about to show you, are based off of what's called Monte Carlo, interestingly enough, a casino term, Monte Carlo analyses of what happens if people pull out money at said 4% or less or more, 4% of their balance, and they get random returns. And they just run thousands and thousands of these projections, these Monte Carlo projections. And these economists turn around and they say, okay, well, if a person wants to hopefully not, the probability of not running out of money, if they want to hopefully not run out of money, depending on how long they live, which is the unknown, we have no idea how long we're going to live, right? But if we retire at 65 and then we live another 20 years, you know, there's a good chance that as long as we've only pulled out 4%, we probably have not run out of money. But if we start pulling out more than 4%, well, there's a good chance that we'll run out of money quicker, right? And the idea is that since we have no idea how long we're going to live, and we can take guesses based on our health and family members and things of that nature. But if we have no idea how long we're going to live, we want to make sure that our money doesn't run out. Because who wants to run out of money in retirement? That's probably a big fear, right? Who wants to leave a spouse behind and then he or she can't afford things because you've run out of money in retirement and they might live several years longer. So you have this whole concept of the probability of not running out of money is to pull less out of your accounts, because if the more you pull, the faster it depletes. Well, that's from an investment-only standpoint. When you start adding insurance-based science to the mix, so you're taking your investment science in your 401k and you start adding actuarial or insurance-based science through whole life policies and then building personal pensions in the future, also using insurance products, you can actually change these curves. And that's why I wanted to show you and what I wanted to show you today. We're going to dig into deeper numbers with this too, but just watch these curves as I change. Here's the original curves. Here's the original curves. 3 and 4% give you the best chance, even though some of these people might run out of money, the best chance of not running out of money. The more you pull out of it, if you're 401k only, investment based only, the faster it might deplete and the greater your chances of running out. Well, if you start adding, especially whole life as a tool, you can change these curves. Look at what happened to the curves. We actually pulled them up. We pulled them up from the bottom. You notice that in the last slide, 8% was down here at the bottom. Now 8% actually has a much greater chance of surviving. And it's all because we're using whole life insurance in this capacity, a policy you have or a policy that you've talked to your friends and family about, that we're using that as what we're going to call a volatility buffer, which I'm going to show you in a few seconds. It's a very strategic way to use the policy that, especially if you build it up for some time, you have the capability to do so because it's a safe, productive, tax-preferred account, right? But notice what happened to those curves. And if you have a whole life policy, which as I click forward, let's just say the whole life is a little bit bigger because you started it sooner, or we're able to fund it more, or it's a little bit bigger because you started it sooner, or you're able to fund it more. We can actually see that we pull these curves up, pull the curves up. Actually, in this case, pulling out 6% of the balance is actually safer. It's safer, watch this, it's safer than pulling 4% of the balance of, let's actually see where that is, just below 80%. Yeah, 6% is actually over 80% in this world, where as long as you have a whole life policy on your balance sheet, a tool to use, which I'm going to show you how we're going to do it, we can actually withdraw more from the investment side. That's what we're talking about. And 6 to 4, actually let me do that. Here's the first 50% number. Interest rate. Here's the first percent number. 4% withdrawal, you get it up to a 6% withdrawal. That's a 50% increase in your overall income in retirement, simply because you've added whole life insurance to the mix. Now, how does this all work? Well, one of the things we have to understand, when we are using only investment science, when we're using only a 401k, we're completely at the mercy of percentage changes. And it's actually not interest, because in many cases we don't earn interest on mutual funds. We're actually earning appreciation, and that's the value that someone could buy those mutual funds off us for. Sometimes there's dividends, and sometimes there's well, you can get into yield off of bonds and stuff, but it's actually not technically interest. But let's just say we have an earnings rate. This is extremely important, seeing what happens with the rules when you start withdrawing money. I want to make this a little bigger for you guys too. First of all, as a first piece of this, I want you to hear, and I want you guys to see, I'm going to make that as big as I can. I want you guys to see, if we start with $1 million account, and it goes up by 20, and then down by 20, I want you to recognize that that is not a zero-sum game. And I'm not even taking in fees or anything into this equation, okay? What I'm showing you is that losses, this is what I want you to take from this, losses are exponentially worse than any type of gain, right? And I can turn this around. I can go I'm not setting this up in any type of certain direction here. I can turn those two around. I can go 20% loss at first and then gain 20% back. Interestingly enough, most people say, hey, if I lose 10 and I gain 10 back, I'm good. If I lose 20 and gain 20 back, I'm good. And it doesn't matter what number that is, right? You're still down. You're still down. Minus 20, and I'll just go back because I was using this for a couple more lines. You're still down because any type of loss requires a greater gain to get it back. Now, where it becomes important in retirement is that as you're starting to take money out of these accounts, let's just say you're withdrawing 50 grand out of this $1 million account because you've seen the account go up by 20%. Right? So here's 20%. You have your $1 million account and it goes up by 20%. You're feeling great about taking 50 G's out. And you know what? I can keep taking 50 G's out because my mutual funds are going to do great. Well, I want you to see this because this actually starts to cause a snowball effect in retirement as we're pulling money out. The rules change when you get on the other side of the mountain, meaning like the retirement side. You get the accumulation side where you're going up, and then the retirement side where you're starting to pull things out of your backpack. Well, when you're pulling money out of an account that has experiences loss, not only is the loss itself, as you probably just saw, hopefully just saw, losses are worse than gains because it takes more to get it back. But then if you're taking money out of the account too, it drops even faster. So what's interesting in this equation is you have $1 million account that has a net earnings rate, average earnings rate of 0, 20 plus 20 minus 20 over 2 years is 0, right? And effectively, I want you to see that you've removed $100,000 from the account, but your account's down by 128. I'm sure, assuming that you can see, if we continue to do this, I'm not saying there's any market investment that's going to do this. Actually, we're going to see that the market might only have a couple down years across the course of a decade or two. But this math, which I need you to understand, this math is extremely important because when you start withdrawing, this is where if retirees don't have a plan and they're using only investment science, only interest rate science, right? They're the ones that are watching the TV every week wondering which way the stock market's going to go. Scared to death to spend down because look at this. In this case, you started with $1 million. Let's say you decided you were confident enough in your returns to spend $200,000, but your account is down by $250. This adds up over time, and that's what I want to take those basic math principles and teach you some things here. So, and we're actually also going to see how the policy plays a role here to not only fix that problem, but again, to increase your income, right? So your whole life policy will increase your retirement income and the longevity of that income, which is effectively what we're going to show here. So investments only. We heard that the 4% rule, which is actually a little bit less. I'm going to show you that sometime soon. The 4% rule. Actually, I'll do that now. Well, no, hold on. The 4% rule says that you got $1 million, you can spend $40,000 a year, and hopefully you won't run out of money. Hopefully, and that's not guaranteed because you might, right? Remember those curves? When we tie in insurance and investments, we can get 6% to 10% or more from these accounts. That's where you get at least 50% bump, if not more. And you can create an environment using the insurance science where all or some of that income is guaranteed, right? So what's better than, I mean, when you go to work, you know that you're getting a check next week, right? And next month you're getting a check. It helps you pay the bills. Well, when you just decide to stop working at some point in the future, if the only place that your money is coming from is these volatile accounts, right? People and maybe you have Social Security, right? For some of us, who knows what Social Security is going to look like, right? But maybe you have Social Security, so you can count on that check, but that check only covers so much of your bills, right? So then you have to start pulling from these accounts, and you kind of get worried. But when you know that when you tie in the insurance science, and you know that you have 2 checks coming in, 3 checks coming in, whatever it is, when you know you can offset the bad years, which I'm about to show you, you can increase and take more from your retirement income, and you can make some or all of that guaranteed, right? One of the angles we're going to go into today, I'm going to show you some serious numbers. So let me actually try to make this a little bit bigger. Here's what I'm going to teach you across these 3 slides. In all 3 slides, we're going to take $1 million account, and we're going to take the S&P returns over the course of some very, very, very good years. Those early years when Wall Street hijacked this. And you can see these good years. I want to, actually, you know what? Let me go down to this one. You can see these good years, right? Over the course, I should have left them down there. That's all right, though, because you run out of money here, but which I'm going to show you that in a second. S&P returns from 1970 to 1990. I mean, they average 12%, and you have $1 million account, and that's where we can get into the faulty math of, well, if I'm making 12, why can't I just take out 100 grand? So in this case, this person starts with $1 million, and you can see that if they start taking out 100 grand, and in those down years where the account is not earning money, it's actually earning less interest than you're taking out. The interest is going down, or the growth is going down. You can see that what ends up happening is the account depletes very, very quickly. And here's a person that started retirement at age 65, and here they are at 78, and they're effectively out of money. Right? So, to make sure that you know that I'm not just baking these stories in, we're also going to show that in the reverse order, if a person's lucky enough to have all the good years, because these upper years here were actually down here, but the problem is the person never got there. Actually, the last year they got to was right here. So what I did was I reversed the order of the returns. And look at this. Over the course of 20 years, there's only 1, 2, 3, 4 down years, right? So let's just say the market does that, The problem that we have is this person on the right just happened to retire at the right time, where in the early years of withdrawing, his account was still growing, right? So he was able to actually live out past age, in this case, 78, and he still had a lot of money. Lucky guy. Maybe he retired in 2017. Maybe he retired in 2012. Maybe he retires in 2025. Are you going to be lucky enough? This is the question. Are you going to be lucky enough that the returns are set up perfectly for you to experience this type of experience where your money doesn't run out? Because quite frankly, this is the same exact average return across those 20 years. But the problem is this person experienced, the not so good year in the first year, and in year 4 and 5, a down year while he was removing money out of his account, and that caused the rest of these even good years. I mean, he's getting high double digits here, high double digits. But the problem is that he would have to start really skimping on his income to prevent this from running out. Okay, so let me show you what ends up happening when you bring in the whole life policy into the mix and use it as what we're going to call a buffer account. So if we have our investments, let me actually pull my face back over here. If we have our investments in one hand, in one bucket, 401k, but we add a whole life bucket next to it, we're going to be able to take the math that we understand now. Losses are exponentially worse than gains. Withdrawals after loss years create a downward spiral that causes our account to run out and deplete faster. So if we have an account right next to everything else that's safe, dependable, we can use with our 401k. Let's look at what happens here. We're going to call this life insurance policy a volatility buffer. Volatility buffer, right? And what we're going to do is we're going to show the same exact scenarios. So down here you can actually see what I was referring to earlier. This is where the earnings that we didn't necessarily see up top because I cut them off. But also you also notice that the person doesn't run out of money at age 78. Why is that? Well, that is because in the years right after, because you can't predict this in the future, the years right after the account earned less than what he's planning on taking out, he takes money from a different account. Doesn't take it from the 401k account. Well, we can get into RMDs and all that stuff, whatever. But he doesn't take it out of the market-based investment account. And what that does is that allows and gives that market-based investment a chance to recoup itself since it would have been, we would have expedited the speed of it reducing since the earnings were less than what we're taking out. And the same thing happens down here when there's a loss in the account, right? Loss, which definitely is effectively it's earned less than we're going to pull out. The very next year we take out zero. The very next, and here's another loss. The very next year we take out zero, right? Well, what does that mean? It doesn't mean you don't have income. What it means is that actually we're taking the income here. We're taking the income here from another account that we've established earlier. In this case, the volatility buffer is a whole life policy. Why does that fit really well? Because it's not exposed to the market. It's not volatile like this. It's going to consistently grow over time. And if we can get 3 years, even just 3 years of buffer built into our whole life policy by starting this thing, and for my clients and our clients that are older and in retirement already, this is one of the reasons, I hope you're hearing this loud and clear, why your kids need to understand this. They see their 401k is just going up over the last 7 years. Why would they do anything different? This is exactly why. You know at your age, I'm not preaching to you, you guys know this. You know at your age that you've been looking for a safe place for cash. And you wish that you started, once you understand that policy, you wish you started it, 10, 15, 20 years sooner. And above and beyond a safe place for cash, what it can do here, as you're seeing from a retirement income standpoint, is humongous. Also, we don't just have to quote unquote hope for this person to have these bad sequence of returns, because this same reverse order, gentlemen, over here to the right, we did the same exact thing in the years where it was less than what they were pulling out. Here's a negative year. In the year right after, in the year right after, in the year right after the negative year, we could do the same exact thing. And look what ends up happening. That account ends up being much stronger than it was up above. 3 million compared to 2.9. 3.8 compared to 2.9. Right? And so lastly, as I get close to wrapping this up, because I'm realizing this thing is like 20 minutes long already, I wanted to put the two side by side where the volatility buffer made the most effect. And you can see if, again, in those years, it's the same individual. If they just had another place, if they had a strategy where they were tying in the safety and security of a whole life bucket to take even just 3 years worth of cash from that whole life bucket. And we can even get into a conversation about this $100,000 coming from a 401k is completely fully taxable. So what's your net off of that? Maybe your net is 80 grand, right? Well, from the volatility buffer, especially the whole life policy, if you want to get 80 grand out of that, here in the volatility buffer, you only have to remove 80 grand because it's tax-free. You get tax-free withdrawals. You pull dividends out. You pull your bases out. You can take a loan completely tax-free, right? So we have all that safety and those attributes there that effectively, if you're not seeing this, number one, if a person doesn't have actuarial science on their side, what do they got to do? They're scared. They have to try to, maybe they remove $40,000 or $50,000 out of this account. Right? So not only can we increase that 40 or 50 to, 60, 70, even in this case, $100,000, right? We also get to notice that we can improve the longevity outcomes and reduce the risk of running out of money. So I say all that. Where am I going to go back up to? I say all that to wrap up with this. Plenty more that's going to come from Eric and I on how the whole life policy fits into retirement, because most importantly, what we want you to understand from this is we're not diminishing our retirement by sending our dollars in a different direction. As a matter of fact, as our clients understand, and this is why, a lot of clients have shared this with their kids and shared this with their friends, and our clients that are in their 30s and 40s are sharing this with their friends because they're like, wait a second, I have an account that I can use along the way for all the different reasons we're putting this 52-week project together. But then it's actually going to help, and this is why we wanted to show you this, it's going to help improve retirement outcomes. And there's statistics, this is what I wanted to show you as I wrap up. There's statistics that show this. It's not just Eric and I that are saying this. As a matter of fact, this is extremely important because not all typically trained financial advisors understand this stuff. When you combine actuarial, which is insurance, with investment science, you improve outcomes. And that's what this paper, which was written 2015, I'm sure it was like 2015, 2016, right? It's summarized like this. Where's the summary, Brian? Where's the summary, Brian? I know I got my summary here somewhere. Here it is. Summarized like this. In this paper, we've explored a more integrated approach, which includes investments, insurance, personal pension type insurance products, and whole life insurance. And by strategically combining all three, the potential exists to develop more efficient retirement income strategies that are able to support a higher income level and greater legacy than investment-only solutions. You may have actually had questions along the way. You may be wondering how we got to certain numbers. You may want to see more about how the policy numbers work inside all this thing. That's what Eric and I are here for. Comment on this video. Send us an email. Clients of ours, make sure you're reaching out to us. Clients who are sharing this with friends, just have them, connect them with us so we can actually help you share this message as well. Not only understand it better yourself, but share the message that combining the whole life policy and the insurance-based science with your 401k increases your retirement income. So with that being said, this is why we do what we do, because this is going to increase your prosperity. Have a great week. Stay plugged in with us.